Okay, any mixed bag stuff, Bill?
We are at 25 to 26, I think, with Chris and Jerry Pack. I think.
The rest of us just in there. So the rest of us are just in there.
Yeah,
So
rest of us are just in
them
there.
two.
That's okay, you never know, maybe they pull in
Next person down is, I think, at 14, you're at 12 or something like that. And then they're at 25 or
Robert's up.
26.
Robert's got more.
Robert's up there too, yeah.
okay, I'm sorry, but you know, mixed bag.
Yeah, they still running neck and neck.
Anything on saltwater? You guys have somebody you went here recently?
Yeah, Chris and Gene and I went Thursday to A-Bears. Beautiful day, slick water, fairly slick water. Just caught small fish. Few reds, few specks, few catfish.
Over in Turner's Cove or?
I don't know what that is. We went north. We were on the east side.
I know exactly where you are,
Yeah. So we went north of the camps and those inlets and into the marsh up there.
okay.
And
Was the farthest we went, were what, about a mile?
and a half or so, yeah. I think between the three of us, we wound up with 3 redfish, 1 flounder, 5 trout, and about 6 catfish. Or something.
Okay. What kind of catfish? What kind?
Those gaff tops.
Oh, yeah.
I caught one really nice, probably 17, 18 inches. I thought it was a redfish. I mean, it bored and pulled. And I mean, it was-
Gaff tops?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, they'll get big lures.
And man, I thought, man, this thing's pulling my kayak around. I said, it's gotta be a redfish. You got it up as one of those daggum catfish. So
We used to eat those.
At least it wasn't hard.
I wish it had been
Yeah.
red. Yeah, that'd have been species for me.
We got it, we ate it.
And the reds were all 14
Yeah.
inches.
Any other saltwater stuff? How about fishing reports?
I sent you the link.
Oh, you did? Thanks, appreciate it. And the next event prior to adjournment is Leader Building.
We've got near term, we got a trip to the White River, the club trip going up there.
Right.
November 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yep.
Got 10 of us going up for that.
Yep.
You know,
So
if you're
the,
not in right now, you know, you're not gonna get in, but consider it for next year. It's good water.
yeah, so when these events come up, it's usually first come, first serve on sign up. And the next big event, or one of the next big events, did you find it what the dates are on the,
Yeah,
we,
the March Brown trip to the Little Missouri River is March 31st through April 3rd, Thursday through Sunday. And the March Brown trip is it's one of the prime times for trout fishing at the Little Missouri River at Murfreesboro. The reason it's called March Brown, and not because it's in the month of March, but that's the peak time for the March Brown mayflies come off. And so that's where the name comes from. We reserve Swaha House, which is a house that has beds for 10, everybody having their own bed, and real comfortable house, good accommodations, 4 bedrooms, I believe, and 3 baths. And it'll be a first come, first serve sign up for it too. And after about the first of the year, we'll start to sign up for it.
okay, and for those of you who have not been there or have not been on that type of trout fishing, you gotta have some waders and some boots. And you gotta have a stick. You gotta have a walking stick. If you don't think you need one, talk to me right there. Here's one.
I went the first time without one. I said, I walked all over Colorado. I don't need
Yeah.
staff to walk in the water with.
Yeah.
I fell 4 times that morning.
Did you really? But the water was not cold, was it?
Well, first thing they told me is don't step on the rocks.
They'll step on the big rocks.
I was with Carlton.
Every rock.
I was with Carlton that morning. You watched me fall all 4 times.
You know, when they
made-
I now have
made
3
fun of
sticks.
And he didn't give you a broke ski pole?
Hurt my
That's what he gave me. He got a broke ski pole.
They work,
I bought me a stick like a back.
they work.
All right, so now the program of the night is the leader building.
Hey, I guess.
And I'll tell you that I was starting from ground zero about 4 years ago. I didn't know a leader from a tippet, from a fight tippet to a class tippet, all these words going around. But Carlton knows. And keep in mind, there's different types of leaders, and you're gonna get different opinions from different people. Okay? So eventually you'll make up your own mind, and you can also just tie some mono on the end of your fly line and have what's called a level leader. There's good reasons to use that sometimes, but Carlton, you got it.
Okay, I think everybody probably knows that, and most of y'all know all of this, but we've got a couple of new people. The leader is a connection between your fly line and your fly, and you get everything pulled out here. Fly line here, then the fly line is attached to the leader is attached to the fly line, and down on the very far end is where we attach our fly. And there's 2 parts to most leaders. Mike mentioned a level leader. A level leader is a leader that just doesn't have any taper to it. It's the same diameter from one end to the other. And when I'm brim fishing with a fly rod, I just use a piece of like 6 or 8 pound monofilament for a leader. And that's all you need for brim fishing. I'm not doing a lot of casting, but the other kind of leader is a tapered leader, and that means it's big on one end and small on the other end. The big end is called the butt end, and it tapers down in about the first 5 or 6 feet to a real small diameter. And then, but when it gets to that small diameter, that's called the tippet end. And the tip end is what your fly is attached to. There's, in addition to a level leader and a tapered leader, a knotless tapered leader, is some, I started doing this several years ago, making up my own leaders. And the reason I did it, I wanted something that was easy, that I could see out there after I got my cast out. And so I started this, what I make this out of is called Amnesia. It comes in different pound test, and it's relatively inexpensive. A 200-foot spool of this is probably, I don't remember, $6 or $7. And I can make, I don't know, hundreds of liters, probably out of 4 spools. What I did, I started out with a 25-pound test, and I used 32 inches of my first section is 32 inches long, and then I go to 15-pound test, and that's 12 inches long. And you see, I go to a chartreuse, a green. It just kind of gives a little contrast that you can see in the water a lot easier. That's 12 inches of 8-pound test, and then 12 inches of let's see, I go 25, 15, 12, and then 8. And then from there on out, I put whatever tippet I want I want to use.
Two questions. That is all that amnesia,
All of this is amnesia.
okay? Where you get it?
Fly shops, I don't know.
Okay, that's, you picked that
That you
somewhere.
get
Yeah.
Amazon.
Okay.
The amnesia, it's Sunset is the brand. I didn't even, this first time I've looked at that. And the reason it's amnesia is says memory-free monofilament. It's, once you get it straightened out, it just doesn't want to kink up on you. You can get the curlicues out of it pretty easy.
Say one more time, Carl. 30, it goes from 25 to what? 25?
25, 15, 12, and 8. All right, the reason I chose these lengths, my fly tying table is 32 inches long. I can just stretch that out. My first section, 32 inches. And then I start tapering down. I have a little mark, 12 inches from the edge of my table. I can just, I'm not sure that that's a ideal formula for lengths, but it seemed to work. All right. This leader, I just tied this up this afternoon. It probably cost me, I don't know, 15, 25 cents or something like that. Because of, once I bought these, I just tied, like I say, probably 100 like off of that. That makes your leaders pretty inexpensive, but I've quit using that. I've gone back to a factory tapered leader. Reason is, this leader has 3 splices in it. Splice from the 25 to the 15, a splice from the 15 to the 12, a splice from the 12 to the 8. Every splice in there is a place for your line to hang up with. Now, for a really good caster that doesn't get any tailing loops, that's probably not a problem. But I get plenty of tangles on these splices, and it just got to be so aggravating that I just decided I was going to eliminate that and go back to the way I started out on a factory tapered leader. Leaders come in different lengths. Most common probably is a 9-foot. 7.5 foot is pretty common. And for, some places even 12-foot lengths. If you're fishing waters that the fish are just extremely wary and clear water, they say you need to go to a longer leader. For most of the water that I fish, and I fished for years with a 9-foot leader, but I've started going to a 7.5-foot leader. That's plenty adequate for Little Missouri. The water's not real clear. The fish are not real wary usually. And it's just, the shorter the leader, the easier it is to cast too. The longer the leaders are harder to cast. And on the end of my leader, and this is a factory tapered leader. On the end of the leader, where your tippet end is, you can use different size. Most people are familiar with tippet size. Tippets come in different diameters. Like when you go and buy a spool of tippet or buy a made up leader, it's because this one happens to be a 4X, here's some 5X leaders. And the X size is the size of the tippet end, the very end of it, the thin end, the small diameter end. And that X size is a function of diameter adding up diameter plus diameter in 1/1000th of an inch, adding up to the number 11. So a 4X leader or a 4X tippet is 7/1000ths of an inch in diameter. 5X tippet would be 6/1000ths. So am I saying that right?
Yep.
So the larger the X number, the smaller the diameter. All right. A lot of times 4X tippet is, naturally 4X is stronger than 5X because it's a larger diameter. 4X tippet is 6.4 pound breaking strength. 5X is about 5 pounds. 6X is 4 something. It just, the smaller the diameter, naturally the breaking strength goes down. But a lot of times 5X is adequate, but a lot more, well, I said 4X is adequate, but what I meant, I said 5X is adequate, but actually, I believe I said 4X is adequate, but you need to, a lot of times you need to go smaller than 4X. So I'll go to 5X or even sometimes 6X. And so, I mean, I have 3 different sizes of tippet material here that I typically carry, 4X and 5X, and sometimes even 2 or 3X. And usually what I'll do is on the end of my leader where it quits tapering down, where it gets a kind of as small as it's going to get, I'll tie on a piece of 4X for about 1 foot, maybe 15 inches, and then however much tippet material I want, I'll go to a 5X. If it's extremely clear water, a fish just on biting, but you know they're there, you might have to go to 6X, just something smaller, something that they can't see. And the reason I go from 4X and then to 5X, I put my strike indicator, I usually put my strike indicator on this top section of 4X. And then I have a splice and go to 5X. And the reason I do that is the strike indicators that I use and a lot of people use, different ones, will want to slide down as you cast, and they'll want to slide down your tippet. But if I go and put it on a piece of 4X, it can only slide to that splice, and it's not going to slide on down and keep getting there. You fly shallow. How much tippet do you need? Well, it depends on the water level. If you want to put your strike indicator on the, like I do on the top of the tippet material, but on that 4X, and you want to be fishing 2 feet deep, if it's no current, you can have 2 feet of tippet below your splice, below your strike indicator. But if you're in current, then your strike indicator's flowing downstream and your fly is trailing behind it like this. It's not like this. Your fly just doesn't have enough weight in current to hold it right below it. And so your tippet needs to be about your fly needs to be about 1.5 times the depth of where you want your of the depth of the water that you want to be fishing in. Well, below your strike indicator. So if it's your stream is river's 2 feet deep, there's much current, then you need 3 feet of tippet below your strike indicator.
Carlton, you don't use tippet rings anymore?
Yeah. What I do, you can't see that, but there's a little swivel retainer thing there with some little tiny rings in there called tippet rings. And I join my tippet to my leader where I'm gonna where it starts getting bigger with a tippet ring. I mean, see how small that thing is. It's about a 1/16 of an inch in diameter, a little steel ring, and it just doesn't have any weight, doesn't add any weight at all to it. When I'm fishing, if I get change flies, every time I change flies, I'm going to lose 3 to 4 inches, 3 to 5 inches of tippet. It's going to keep getting shorter, keep getting shorter, keep getting shorter every time I change flies. Or if I get a big tangle in my line and can't see that I can't get it out real easy, I'm going to cut it out and add some more tippet and start over. All right. If you keep shortening up and keep shortening up, pretty soon you're going to get up into the butt section of your leader and it's going to start getting shorter. Your leader itself will start getting shorter. So that little tippet ring is the joint between the leader and the tippet. And every time I change tippet, add tippet, I'd cut it off right there at that ring and just tie some new tippet on there. And then my leader, I mean, I use a leader a long time. Just tell you, I might not change leaders for a year, but I'm going through a lot of tippet. And so that's one reason for the tippet ring. It just makes a real easy transition between the tippet and the leader. Mike?
Carl, when do you, if you go to the butt section and then you got a bolt tapered leader, do you cut that when you first get the leader?
Yeah.
Put that tip ring on there?
Yeah.
So you have a 7.5 foot leader, which you will chop off at the top of the tippet.
I'll just judge where that thing starts tapering up. And as soon as that, your tippet is usually going to be on a boat leader, is usually going to be about 2 feet long, and then it starts tapering up. But I just look at it and decide, okay, it's starting up right here, so that's where I'm going to tie it. And I want it to be my tippet ring to be on the larger section than whatever tippet I'm going to be using, so that if I get snagged and break off, my tippet ring is still going to be on my leader. So if I'm using like 4X on a 4X leader, 4X tippet on a 4X leader, I want my splice on my tippet ring to be on, say, the 3X section of the leader, or just where it starts getting a little bigger, so that I save my tippet ring if I break off, it's going to break off down below it.
Carlton, will they float the tippet ring? Will they float in the surface film so you can use them with dry flies if you wanted to?
Oh, I feel certain they will. Yeah,
I've got some.
Every time I've fished, and I dry fish most all summer, the tippet ring doesn't affect if you're using a hopper. Now, when you get down to a parachute and you're getting in the 20s or something like that, there might be some issue.
Yeah.
But on a 16, on a hopper, or even a 18 parachute, you're usually decent. I mean, it doesn't drag down.
You know, monofilament, you lead a material that just about everybody uses is monofilament, and it's just gonna pretty much float. It's gonna hold the tippet ring up. Now, if you was using fluorocarbon leader, then it would probably sink because your leader wants to sink too. I'll use a little bit of fluorocarbon tippet material, a spool of regular nylon leader, a monofilament leader is $5 for 30 yards. A spool of fluorocarbon is $15 for 30 yards. So I don't use much of that, but sometimes fluorocarbon supposedly is a lot harder for the fish to see when it's underwater. And plus it's denser than monofilament. And so it'll sink faster and allow your fly to sink faster. If you're trying to get your fly down to the bottom where the fish are, it'll just help allow it to get down a little bit faster than monofilament will. But I mean, if I'm going to be using fluorocarbon and my tippet is this long, I may have this much fluorocarbon on it, just so the fish don't see it as easy. Okay.
Carlton, have you tried that stuff Robert uses? This like comes in half sizes, like 5.5?
No, I haven't.
Because he told me last time we were up there, he said he just kind of settled on 5.5X for everything.
It's probably good.
Mono or fluoro?
I think it's mono.
Mono, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it's a Rio product. It's Power Flex, I think they call it. I don't know. You can look it up. But it's 4.5X, 5X, 5.5X.
Yeah,
It's
Power Flex is a Rio monofilament brand, but yeah, 5.5.
There's fluoroflexes there.
Fluoroflex is their fluorocarbon. And look, Rio, Argus leader, tippet, they probably all come off the same spool. Now, I'm not sure that Cabela's and Bass Pro does, but I feel like most of them are going to come off the same 10,000 yard spool. So I don't think that brand makes a whole lot of difference in the leaders or the other tippet material. I've gone through, threw out a good bit of information pretty fast there. Bob, Doug, y'all have any questions? Mike?
There's a formula that I don't know, that you can take the 5X, like convert that to pound test, right?
9 minus the X. Rule of 9. It's called rule of 9s, but it's not accurate anymore because I think 9 minus X means that 5X is 4 pounds, and now most 5X is 5 pounds. Yeah. So it's 9 or 10.
5X
Kind of guide that rough.
Yeah, 9 or 10. Subtract the X from 9 or 10, and you get roughly.
And the diameter thing that he's talking about is called rule of 11.
Yeah.
But they don't really apply.
It's the same thing with the fly lines. So for marketing, they'll make the break off at the poundage different while they're keeping the X the same, if that makes sense. So like with fly lines, they'll make fly lines heavier and call it a 5-weight fly line when really it's closer to a 6. The same thing with tippet material. They want to say that it breaks off at 6 pounds. So it's, 5 pound test or something like that, when really it's more like 4X. It's all, I mean, it's just a sliding scale with.
Marketing, so
stuff.
marketing's got into it. Just
Absolutely.
get the fly tied on, that's the important.
So it becomes.
6, 8, 7, 8, you can't see it anyway.
Becomes a factor when you submit a fish for a record. And then they go through this rigmarole, they put it on a machine and test it. And they say, well, that wasn't a 5X tippet record, that made, you had equivalent of 3X on there. So
Or you say, here's the
Yeah,
package I
it's
got it out of.
That's kind of been a knock on some of the essay stuff that I've just read in articles. I don't know personally, but that, you know, when they say, hey, this is 5X, it's really like 4X of, you know, yesteryear or whatever.
If I got IGFA certified tippet line.
just one of the machines for.
And
You don't need those for the state.
5X is 5 pound, so that doesn't quite fit the rule of 0.9. 4X is 6.4 pound test.
More like the rule.
2X is 10 pound test. 1X is 12.5 pound test. So
What's your favorite brand of tippet material, Mr. Carlton?
no, I don't have one. Either Rio or Orbis.
You got Lego right
Most
there.
shops in this area carry Orbis. And when I went out west 4 years ago, Robin and I went out west 4 years ago, I stocked up on Orvis. I figured, well, I'm gonna stay with Orvis tippet. I got out there, could not find Orvis tippet in a non-Orvis shop out west. It's mostly Rio. So the Orvis spools will spin, you can hold it and pull off of an Orvis spool a lot
Oh,
easier
they've
than you
got
can a Rio.
the built-in cutter too.
Yeah,
Marketing,
so
more marketing.
I like them both. On this trip that we went on a month ago in September, I wanted some new tippet and frog hair.
Yeah.
Was you could buy a combo in the little shop out there in Creed in South Fork, like 3, 4, and 5X, 3 spools for, it was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Frog hair. Trout Master is a
Trout
good name, I believe.
Trout hunter,
Trout hunting, yeah.
that's my favorite.
Uh-huh.
But does mono have a shelf life?
Yes. You're
Some-
supposed to take, from what I understand is every 2 or 3 years. You're supposed, if you still got a spool sitting, you need to get rid of it.
Marketing.
Yeah, I've
Fluoro lasts forever.
That's
a lot of people say that, and, I think
Rick's white.
that its enemy is UV light,
Right.
and mine, when I'm fishing, this is in a pocket. When I'm not, so a few hours for a few days a year.
Right.
When I'm not fishing, it's in my closet. So, I mean, I don't think, it's getting so little UV exposure, I just don't know.
What knots do you use to connect those different sections?
Uh,
I see you got a protection loop on
Uh,
the butt section.
A double union knot. Yeah, if you can tie a blood knot, that may be better, but I can't tie a blood knot. And don't have the patience to learn, and I don't feel the need to learn, so.
So what knot do you use for your tippet to the tippet ring?
An improved clinch knot, same knot I use for my town flies.
And that's on both sides of the tippet ring?
Yeah.
So you don't use his 80 knot on your flies.
Uh,
Robert taught me today.
A little bit on really small flies, like a 20, a small one. I can usually tie an improved clinch as fast as I can tie a Davy knot.
Years ago, you had told me you'd read some article or something, that the strength of that knot was not as well as maybe he had advertised. I don't know if you recall
David,
that.
which-
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
But
Davy not.
But
They
you
always
ask
do it
David
double.
Watton,
On
who
this.
developed the Davy knot, and he'll say, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit, you know, and use those terms. And,
I do a double.
Davy Watton, if you hadn't met him, he's, I've heard other people say he may be the best fisherman in the world, the best fisherman in the country anyway. He's the guide on the White River. Anyway, he's very opinionated, and his way of doing things, they ain't no better.
That's the only way, right?
Yeah.
Way of the highway.
Yeah. But he is a
He
good guide. I
produces.
have fished with him several times, and very good guide, and just a pleasure to fish with. I've enjoyed fishing with him, but
I know I've never had one of those knots come loose. I mean, I've
No,
screwed up the
I hadn't
tie,
either.
the tying.
The Davy,
Yeah. If it clinches down and stays, it's gonna stay.
And it is a very, very compact, it's probably the most compact knot that you can tie. So for really small flies, it is a good knot.
I agree with Bill. I've used that Davy knot in different monofilament, pull all that stuff. And it didn't give, it didn't break.
It's a
Whereas-
matter of when you set it. If you don't set it right, it ain't, because believe me, I found out the hard way. But on bass flies, I gotta use a double cleanse. I don't trust it.
Yeah, just about any knot, if you don't set it right, it's gonna come loose.
Yeah, but I mean, on a Davy knot, that's the key to it. It's gotta sit straight on there. If you pull it sideways, I don't know.
It's in the demonstrations that you see, if you look it up, it'll tell you, you know, when you start pulling it down, your tag end should come out at right angles to the running line in your hook as you pull it, your fly as you pull it. And you know,
On the improved clinch or the Davy knot?
on a day.
The improved clinch comes out straight through.
But kind of Davy knot, I put it in my teeth, tag in my teeth and just do this. And it's learn how to do that. It's a nice germs.
Yeah, kills worm.
It's supposed to make, you know.
Well, if you're interested in the testing and all, Rio's got a bunch of videos where they test their knots and they tell you what the breaking strengths are.
What about Saltwater Leaders from, Flip is up right now. Or he was, is he still there?
Flip, can you hear us?
I sure can.
Let me turn my volume up. I don't know if we can hear you, but if you will, I don't know if you heard Mike's question about what to use for saltwater leaders for various uses or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I most of my saltwater fishing, in fact, pretty much 100% of it is for redfish. And Keith Richard years ago told me, I was painting myself over leaders and making leaders. He says, the best thing is tie on 6 foot of 20-pound test. And that's pretty much what I do. But with that said, I do tie my own leaders. I tie a 40, 30, 20-pound leader and a 40 and a 20-pound leader, which I make out of Berkeley trilene.
Okay, so you do
Berkeley.
a 40 and a 20.
I do a 40 and a 20 and a 40, 30 and a 20. Like Mr. Carlton said earlier, though, the problem with those knots is, especially when you're fishing where there's vegetation, that you'll have 10 pounds of grass on there when that fish takes off. So, I'm not a big fan of that. I started making my own furrow leaders. They're about 6 to 7 feet long. And of course I have a tippet ring on them, and I'll tie on, 2 or 3 feet of 20-pound test on the end of that, and that seems to work well.
So for your redfish, the terminal end is always 20 pounds?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, most of my red fishing though is done, well, it used to be out at Breton Island, Chandler Islands, and we were catching, 30, 40-pound fish. So I always like to use the 20-pound, but I use that inshore and have had no problems with it. Have any of y'all seen Keith's book that he put out about tying leaders? I don't know if y'all have seen it, but I mean, it's a wealth of information. Every species you can imagine, he's got recipes for and how to do it.
I know, is it an ebook or is it a published book?
It's a published book. It's a little bitty thing about 50 pages, 60 pages long. But
I know when Kent showed us saltwater, his was kind of similar to yours. It was like, I have it written down, but it was like 5 or 6 feet of 20-pound and then 2 or 3 feet of 16-pound, whatever your term was it.
yeah.
Tied with a double uni knot.
But I mean, I will say, I've had nothing but trouble using these custom-made tapered leaders because of the big knots. I mean, these knots are huge. I tie a blood knot, and every time I go, you wind up having to pull it in and peel off all the grass that sticks to the knot. So it's really more trouble than it's worth.
He made. Now, Carlton, do you change this up? Thank you. Thanks, Flip.
Yeah.
Do you
Can I
change
ask
this
a
up?
question?
Sure.
That amnesia, is that a mono?
Yeah. It's, let's see what it says. It didn't tell you what it's made out of. Yeah, memory-free monofilament. I don't know if you can see that here. I'll bring it up.
I can. Uh-huh. And whereabouts do you get it?
I've gotten some of it at just online, and I don't remember where. I've seen it in fly shops, and you can get it in the red and the kind of chartreuse, and also in clear. And it comes in different weights. I just decided to try the 25, 15, 12, and 8. But they probably make it in heavier weights than 25 even.
Cool.
I'm sure you go to Amazon, you can Google the amnesia fishing line monofilament, and something will come up.
Yes, sir.
Be there in 3 days.
Yeah.
Carlton, did you use the maximum chameleon or any of that for leaders and how it compares to this? Because I bought some chameleon.
I haven't tried anything like that.
It's got memory.
Yeah, it's not like, it doesn't look near as limp as that. I'm gonna get some of that to try.
Talked about, Mike mentioned level leaders fished in the Green River in Dutch John, Utah, right below Flaming Gorge Dam. Beautiful, beautiful area. And the guy there, we were fishing with 12 foot of leader. And what he used was 8-pound fluorocarbon, just Berkeley Vanish, something like that, tied to your fly line. At the top of, on the end of the fly line, he used a blow up water balloon. One of these, it looks like a hand grenade. You got the little image of a hand grenade on the water balloon. But you just blow it up about 2 inches in diameter and tie it onto the end of the fly line, not even the leader. Then 12 feet of just level leader, just a 8-pound test, which is, it happens to be at the 10 thousandths of an inch. So that would be like 1x, equivalent of 1x. And then 12 feet down, tie the top fly, then a foot below that, second fly, a foot below that, third fly, and a foot below that, 10 BB shot, drop shot. And we were fishing with 11-foot poles, I believe. And now this was a float trip, and the average water depth was, 10, 11 feet. So as we're drifting along, as that drop shot, the BBs down on the bottom, they would just bounce along the bottom, and your indicator, that big balloon on the top, it would just bounce along the top there as you go, and you could tell if you got a strike. I mean, it would go under right quick. You got a strike. But now you talk about trouble landing the fish, getting a 12-foot pole, 11-foot pole with 12 feet a leader to the top fly, and most of the fish was biting the bottom fly. You'd have to stand up on the bench almost.
The balloon you said was on the fly line?
On the fly line.
Yeah.
Hey, look, out west, I've just fished with a few guys out west, and they'll use all kind of things that you're not going to see in a book. And they, we talk about having to fish with small tippet for wary fish and all. Shoot, they talk like a lot of places. You can get by with 2x, 3x leader. Even in clear water, a lot of places they say the fish just aren't real leader shy. You go east into the Appalachians, that water is just gin clear, and Keith just came from there. And they say you have to get down to 7x tippet or something. Now you talk about having to be easy on your hook sets. When you go to 7x, it's like 2.5 pound test, something like that.
Did you fish over there? Did you fish over there?
Yeah, we were in North Carolina there, fishing with Todd on a float trip on that, and we just fished some creeks and different things.
Who were out there with Jerry Pat?
No, Tom Zabosky.
We're gonna be out there.
Carlton, I got a bass leader bass aren't leader shy. Or so they say. So you can use, straight piece of 12, but I use a piece of 20 with a visit swivel and 12. And visit swivel is like flips saying catching a bunch of garbage. But then you keep tying on that piece and your butt section stays the same. I've had good luck with it. I mean, when I'm fishing streamers, it's 2 foot of 20 and 2 foot of 12. And so far, the past couple of years, it's worked really, but that's it's a saltwater tip. Because it's
Rio's.
Yeah, it's Rio saltwater tip at 20 pound to 12 pound. That's all I use for leader. But if Bill can attest, 12 ain't big enough sometimes to get to the end of it. Change pickle, cut it in half in a minute. But
Slice off my big hair day a couple of days.
I heard Bill say, I got one. I thought I'd go in the air and just kept going. It's wearing a golden tooth somewhere. It's wearing a bad hair. That bad hair day's still in his mouth.
I feel like leaders and tippet is the most overthought part of this whole little hobby.
Like Bob said, grew up fishing on a piece of.
You want to create
On the other side of the court.
you want distance, you want depth, and
Just
less
don't want to
visibility, and you want it to turn over.
You don't want to break. That's big.
I didn't mention this. You mentioned turnover. A leader, when the cast gets out fully extended in front of you, here's what's supposed to happen. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. Your fly line is supposed to straighten out, and your leader is supposed to just in other words, the fly is supposed to end up at the very end in a straight line from the end of your fly line and then settle to the water. Mine didn't ever do that because I'm not that good at casting. But I did notice when I switched from my leader that I built back to a regular a factory leader, that worked a whole lot better. I noticed if I made a correct cast, when it just would unfold there the way it's supposed to, which it never would do it with this. And so that's another advantage of a good tapered leader, I believe, is
It's probably not less more than anything, though.
I don't know the base on that, but it's probably 40, 45 pound stuff.
And it's hard, yeah, and so like, if you're gonna taper 40 down to 4X, like Mr. Carlton's fishing, it's gonna create that hinge in there.
you know, the butt section of this is probably more than 25 pounds.
Right.
So,
Paul, but what about, have you found since you started using that New England strike indicator, it rolls out better? You don't have a resistance to that little cork you use?
You mean the New Zealand strike indicator?
I don't know, because it catches, you know, it has a lot more wind resistance. I think than a little ball, than a little.
I just guess I thought it was less because there was just that piece of yarn instead of that round out.
You know, you can probably get by using less of that. What he's talking about, a New England strike indicator is nothing but a piece of wool, just a little few strand, well, a little bunch of wool about that long. It's extremely sensitive. You attach it to your line of your leader. It is extremely sensitive. I just feel like I can detect strikes a lot easier on it than I can the old bobber type indicator. But and it's, once you get set up with it, it's cheaper than the regular strike indicators. Has a lot of advantages, but I think it might you know, it's bulk to it, not weight, but bulk. Now, you can get by with a whole lot more, less material than what I generally use.
Yeah.
Because that thing it's just that much of it in the water and that much of it sticking up, you know, so.
Yeah, I wasn't using very much. That's last time I used it.
But I really like it. Now, in fast current, not so much, especially if it's just really fast in pocket water and stuff, not so much.
I found that chubby Chernobyl pant worked better. Or last summer did it. Right.
And I've told you all I know about leaders and appreciate the input.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All this time and knots and stuff, I kind of think about a level leader being a really good deal.
Flip, you still got Mark, any questions? Catch, you're still on with us? You're muted, I see. Nope, he's still muted.
See, the catch will give us an update on this situation.
Yeah, catch, if you're on, we're asking for an update from you. It's good to see your name on the Zoom anyway. And that big white perch on your profile there.
It's good to be back back home.
Yeah. Cool. Glad you're on.
I may even go wet a line tomorrow morning.
You may go wet a line tomorrow. Okay, we'll post some pics.
That's
That's
great
awesome.
to hear.
That is
I
really
sure
good to hear.
will.
Yep, that is really good to hear, man. Good, glad you're back with us tonight. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you, Carlton. I'm not adjourning, that's the president's job, but I am going to end the Zoom.
Meeting is now adjourned. Carlton, thank you very much.
Thank
Very informative. If you guys got questions?